Newcomer, page 89. November 25th, 1987. I've done too much thinking, constantly playing what I should have done games. I should have hightailed our Treeport at the first witchy signs of plots. Granted, I went along with their sperm-filled days long enough to get Rachel and myself out of there. Before then, I should have stood my ground when Rachel tried to convince me that they were just a bunch of harmless feminists. There's nothing harmless about someone who hates. Her intercom buzzed repeatedly, trying to disturb Lenise into waking. Her subconscious mind incorporated the sound into her dream. The buzzing turned into a red beacon located over a prison waiting room door, beeping notification that it would be opening. The visitors stood, waiting to be allowed to enter the room where the prisoners were held. Lenise stood waiting also, anticipating the door's opening, but hoping that it wouldn't because she didn't want to see the hollow faces of the people behind the door. Slowly it did open, sliding back into the wall from which it stood. Lenise tried to walk through, but she couldn't. The other visitors passed her, leaving her alone in the room with the open door and the aggravating sound of the beacon becoming louder and louder. She screamed for help, but no sound came from her mouth. She closed her eyes and covered her ears, still trying to scream, while the buzzing grew louder. Trying to will the beacon silent, she willed herself awake instead. "Aw, shit," she exclaimed while rubbing her face. "What is it?" she yelled at the intercom. "Forgive me for disturbing you, my queen," came Stephanie's voice, "but you are being summoned to the infirmary." "The infirmary?" she questioned, while rising to put her robe on. "Yes," came the reply. "It's Matrix Bertha. She is dying." "Bertha? Why have I been summoned to see Matrix Bertha?" Lenise asked her assistant, to maintain the charade that she didn't know the woman personally. Somehow the old teacher had discovered Lenise's smoking habit, never giving many details to her discovery, just disclosing enough evidence to connect Lenise with Fedora. Bertha used her allegations to extort a head housekeeper's pinboard, which was programmed with, among other things, door panel codes. What the old woman wanted with it, Lenise tried not to fathom. An unauthorized surrender of this device was enough to have Lenise put to death. Bertha held Lenise's demise one way or the other. Most deviations from the way were punishable by death. So this new revelation of Bertha's condition both worried and relieved Lenise as she listened to Stephanie's explanation that Bertha had made the request. "Let me dress," Lenise said, "then I'll be down." "There's no time for dressing. The priestess has just left." Lenise told Stephanie that she'd be there immediately and did so. As she entered the infirmary, she was met by Diana. "Sorry to disturb you. It was a special request." Lenise nodded. "I don't understand all this formality. You could have summoned me yourself. You know they try to visit all high socialites when they are sick or dying." She hoped that this explanation would erase the suspicion from Diana's eyes. It did. "That's right, you do. I'm sorry if I seem shady," she said, stifling a yawn. "Excuse me, I haven't had much sleep dealing with 3 charges. 3 charges? Why wasn't I informed? I know only my own charge. For that matter, why wasn't I told that Matrix Bertha was ill?" Diana knew that Lenise was incensed and why, but there wasn't much that she could do for her right now. Bertha's death was impending, and there wasn't time for explanations. "We'll talk about that later. You should go see Matrix Bertha." Reminded of why she was there, quieted Lenise. She excused herself and went over to Bertha's door, collecting herself before entering. The door opened, revealing Bertha alone, lying in her bed. While the door slid closed behind her, Lenise exhaled her anxiety and walked into the room. Bertha was surely dying, if not dead already, for there was no spirit left in the face that blended in with a white pillowcase. No muscle tone, no color, just loose flesh hanging from the skeletal frame. Matrix Bertha, she called quietly. There was no response. Bertha, she called again, walking closer to the bed. The teacher's eyelids struggled to unmove themselves, pulling open to reveal a glazed-over gray stare where there used to be spunky blue twinkles. "Denise, come closer," she croaked, barely audible, but loud enough for Denise to hear that she'd been informally addressed. Sitting down in a chair beside Bertha's bed, she glanced casually towards the door. The telltale red blinking light of an activated monitor confirmed her fears. "Matrix Bertha, you do me honor by calling me here," she said soberly, trying to get the woman to understand the reason behind her tone. "Denise," the old woman stuttered. Denise cut her short. "Don't exert yourself, Matrix Bertha." "May I?" she began, and pressed the hidden button on her forearm. She hadn't needed to use the scrambler since indoctrination school, and prayed that it still worked as she whispered, "We're being monitored." The dying teacher nodded heavily and motioned towards her drawer. Denise opened it and pulled out the shawl that Bertha always wore. She looked at Bertha, and Bertha nodded. The faded shawl felt heavier than it appeared, so Denise unfolded it carefully, expecting something to be wrapped up inside of it. Upon finding nothing, she folded it back into a triangle and placed it on her lap. Raking her hair out of her eyes by running her fingers through it, she allowed the motion to turn her head towards the door. The monitor was blinking. "Thank you for the shawl, Matrix Bertha," the stoic tone returned. "Can I help you in any way?" "Yes, my queen," came the daughter's reply. "There is an envelope in the drawer. Would you deliver it to the High Council?" At the mention of the High Council, a rock of insecurity hit Denise's stomach. The old woman's reputation was common knowledge. Calling Denise was here enough to get her monitored by the High Council. Now she had to meet for a consultation and probably be cross-examined because of the impropriety of this visit. Showing no emotion, or hoping that she didn't, she reached into the drawer and took out the envelope and stuck it into the pocket of her robe. She looked up to ask Bertha about the envelope, but the woman's eyes had frozen over with death. The outside monitors alerted the staff of Bertha's demise. Diana bustled in the room, not to try to revive her patient, but to disconnect the support and monitor systems so that the death process would go unhampered, while Denise excused herself to go wait in Diana's office. As soon as Diana arrived, Denise fired her questions. "Why wasn't I informed earlier about Matrix Bertha? Why didn't you tell me about the other charges? After all, I'm still High Queen of Nision, or have you forgotten?" The doctor seemed to ignore the attack, going straight to her locked cabinet to take out a decanter and 2 glasses. "Let's not quarrel, Denise. I don't have the energy," she said while filling the glasses. Denise became concerned by the doctor's actions, studying her face for the signs of breakdown. When she saw the dark rings beneath the sad, swollen eyes, she accepted the medicine that the doctor ordered. Matrix Bertha had been Diana's favorite restructure teacher. She often told Denise about the teacher's animated personality and how she brought restructure alive with individual accounts of the period, so that the students could see, taste, and smell the past instead of only reading it on their pinboards.